bigger than yours.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Bible Fun with the Duns. Today, we're reading about the end times in Mark chapter 13. So, let's get started.
All right. So, what's really crazy about today is yesterday, our family had a conversation on the very things this chapter talks about. Today, after dinner, we pulled the Bible out and started reading it, and we read the very words that we were talking about end times. And so Preacher Daddy's gonna pick up from there. It's Jesus's, last moments. He knows what's about to happen, and he is leaving them with what's important. And a big part of his message in today's chapter is to be alert.
That's right. So whenever you read Mark chapter 13, this is the beginning of of how Mark will record what we call the Olivet Discourse. So what that means is Jesus and the disciples are coming off the Mount of Olives. Jesus is looking out with his disciples at all the things they can see. When you're standing on the Mount of Olives, you can look out and see all of the old city of Jerusalem. So they're sitting there and they're talking about all of it. And you can see in these opening verses that somebody looks at Jesus and says, look at the beautiful stones of the beautiful city. It's like anybody being from somewhere really proud of something nice in that place. It'd be like somebody coming to your house and you want to show them something that you're proud of on your property. Come see this. We want you to see this. And they're talking about beautiful things that they have seen. So when they're talking about this, Jesus kind of takes this and he says, all right, but let me tell you where this is all leading. So you can tell that the Jewish people are very proud of their system. They're very proud of their city, and they're very proud of their temple, which just 2 chapters before this, Jesus had called that place a den of thieves, but they're still talking about how beautiful it is. And when Jesus said, he said, do you see these buildings? Not one stone shall be left upon another that shall not be thrown down. So Jesus, when he says this, it's about year 33 AD. By year 70, the Romans will wipe out every building there, and Jesus is exactly true. And what he's saying, don't put your confidence in the permanence of earthly things. Then he's going to fast forward, because the disciples are going to ask him, when do these things happen? And one of the most interesting questions that we can ask, or that just like in our society and in our world, what we would ask God, it starts with the word when. Mm-hmm. When is this going to happen? When are you going to do this? When are you going to do that? I mean, how many times have you just wanted to ask the Lord, when is this going to be over? Or just any situation in life. So that's what they're asking. When? Jesus begins to talk about how, as the world nears the end, that there will be political problems, cultural problems. Life will be on its development. Life is not going to get better and better and better until finally we achieve heaven on earth. Life is actually going to get pretty dark and pretty bad. And listen, can't all of us look at the world and just see the things and go, there are a lot of comforts that have gotten better. I mean, if I'm going from Jesus' time to our time, I'm really grateful for the air conditioner, right? But look at the world and with a straight face tell me, you know what? Everything's just getting so much better. We just don't have problems like we used to have problems. There's just not trouble. There's not disease. There's not sickness. There's not strife. Look, can we not all agree that when we turn on the news at night, we expect to hear bad and not good because that's the world we live in? And so what Jesus is telling these disciples, that it's important for believers at all moments to understand that life, and we don't know when, but that life, this world is coming to an end day. And since we don't know when that is, we got to live every single moment as opportunities to share Jesus and opportunities to be faithful to him. Really, if you read through this passage, matter of fact, go back through sometimes and circle the number of times you hear Jesus say things like to watch or to take heed or to be alert, because Jesus isn't giving dates. What he's doing is he's waving red flags saying, hey, pay attention, pay attention, pay attention. And then what I like about this, because a lot of people are going to read this chapter and they're going to get really excited. I got some friends, they're going to read this and they want to know, like, when the fig tree buds and that generation will not pass away, how many years between when Israel became a nation and today, how many years are, and does that mean Jesus is going to come back before that generation passes away? Like, people are going to talk about that. And by the way, all of us can have opinions on that. And at the end of the day, we're all just going to have to sit back and go, yeah, but we don't know for sure, do we? Because Jesus said, no man knows the times or the season. No man knows those things. So what does he say? He says, so if you don't know that stuff, you know what you do? You watch and be ready. My favorite part about this is not the stuff he gives. You know, there's a great moment in here where Jesus says that there will be wars and rumors of wars and earthquakes in diverse places and trouble. I hear people every time, like there's a war, and they'll go, oh, sign of the time. Earthquake, famine, oh, sign of that. That means it's almost here. But what Jesus actually says is he says, don't be troubled by these things. They must happen, but the end is not yet. When Matthew talks about this, he says these are not the end. They're like the birth pains. They're like somebody going into labor. The baby's not here, but it's just letting us know there's signs signaling these things are falling into place. I think the key to this is, and we could talk about times and seasons. Jesus said he didn't know it at that point. You know, he wasn't going to tell us, but which is remarkable because we spend a whole lot of our time trying to figure it out. Mm-hmm. But what Jesus says is actually the most important thing. Like in verse 26, he says, we'll back up to verse 25. He says, the stars of heaven will fall, the powers of the earth will be shaken. I mean, everything's closing down. And he says, then they will see the Son of Man coming in the clouds with great power and glory. He says, no matter how bad it gets, Jesus will not abandon his people, but he's coming for his people. And he says in verse 31, heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will by no means pass away. So we can depend on Jesus. His words are more than certain and more than reliable. They are the literal foundation of everything. Everything gonna pass away before even one of his promises fails. He's good, and listen, he's coming back. So when he comes back, he will either find us watching, waiting, ready, and alert, or we'll be caught off guard. Listen, when he comes back, do you want him to find you doing what you need to be doing, telling everybody about Jesus and living faithfully for him, or just doing whatever you want to do? I want us all to be found faithful. So watch and be alert. All right. Hope you have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow, and we're winding down this. Everything's headed to the cross, and so we'll be there tomorrow. All right. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.